All right, we have a roll call.
Yes. All right. Chair West,
You're present.
Vice Chair Miller-Jabay, Ed Contreras,
Here.
Diane Foster, Cameron Fox is absent, Taylor Funru is absent, Rich Miller,
Here.
Bob Silverform,
Here.
and Lori Zwingli. Here.
All right. We have the minutes. They were distributed. Does anybody have any changes or corrections to the minutes as were presented? Look at Bob.
I'm looking over here. I thought about that, and I was thinking about saying something, but I know it had been 2 months, and I did go through and I read them, and they look fine, so I moved it.
Yeah, I appreciated having the PowerPoint in the hard copy, so. So with that, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Bob did.
Oh, he did? Second? Thank you, Bob, and Lori. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. It's the 16th already. Okay, all right. Sean, since you left, one of the things we've added is go around and have all the members of the board share something or announce something that they'd like to since the last one. So, Rich, we'll start with you since you're on the end.
Well, I am very pleased with the outcome of the election that we have a new council chairperson, president. I think he'll do a great job. And I'm also really pleased about our new mayor. And I'm looking forward to a period of peace during this season. That's all I have to say.
Great, thanks. Bob?
I have a comment and 2 questions.
Do we say no questions?
The comment is that last week, my wife got a ticket right at the stop sign by Snyder Park. And she kind of did a rolling stop. Down in California where we used to live, they were okay, but obviously they're not okay here. So she got pulled over and got the ticket. And what I wanted to say is that the officer, Colton Waker, who gave her the ticket, was very polite, very professional, and was very concerned that, and she was on the way to a doctor's appointment, very concerned that she would make the doctor's appointment. So even though it was an unpleasant situation of getting the ticket, I was going to say she drove away smiling, but that's not the case. So that's my comment. So he did a nice job. And my 2 questions. About a month ago, I was driving on Sunset, which is not a back rural road, and I saw a young lady riding a horse down Sunset. Is that legal? It's okay to ride a horse on Sunset.
Where was she riding?
She was, I'm going to say on the sidewalk. It was not in the street.
I do not believe it's legal actually to be on the sidewalk. I'd have to check that. There's specific uses for sidewalks. However, somebody can ride a horse on the shoulder of the road. So I just wanted to make sure she wasn't walking down the middle of the travel path. That would not be okay. But as far as I know, it's okay to walk on the shoulder, to ride a horse on the shoulder.
Okay.
Let me double check though.
Okay. Sean, that's kind of by your house, right?
Where were we at?
Right on Sunset, kind of around the park.
Yeah, I'm near Snyder there.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, there's quite a few horses up Oregon Street there. So.
And my second question is it okay for a resident to place a no parking sign that they've made in front of their house, so because they don't like other people parking in front of their house? And if the answer is yes, it's okay, there must be a time limit on that, I would think.
It's not okay. The answer is not yes. So in essence, it's a worthless sign. It carries no legal authority whatsoever.
Okay,
So I'm not aware of a prohibition to somebody putting the sign out, per se, but it has no legal authority. It's not an official sign, and there would be no ramifications from a legal standpoint.
okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
I'm assuming you're talking about in a residential neighborhood on a public street.
That's correct.
Parking on public streets are regulated by the governing authority, not by residents.
All right, okay. Nothing for me. Lori?
So the Sherwood Police Foundation Board, almost in its entirety, well, at least a number of us, went to the Oregon Police Officers Association Awards Dinner a couple of weeks ago, and we saw a number of officers from around the state be honored, which was really impressive. And I would encourage the public to go to those if they have the opportunity and they find out when the dates are. The things that you learn about what our officers go through and what they see and what they deal with on a regular basis, the news doesn't do it justice. The information that you get at these events is just really phenomenal, and it was very, very impressive and very awe-inspiring, I guess, is what I want to say. Kind of somber, of course, in some respects, because you were listening to stories that just were very hard to hear. And I would imagine hard to live through if you were the officers, certainly the families who were dealing with the tragedies. But it was, overall it was a really eye-opening night and very eye-opening experience, and I would encourage people to go and learn and be a part of it. On a more upbeat note, they had a raffle there, and there were 3 things that were being raffled off. One of them I'm going to let the chief talk about because I would not remember the proper name of the item. But if you look at the back of the room, there's a quilt on the tables there. And there was a woman who was part of the board of the OPOA, and she gathered patches from, I think, most of the police departments around the state, and they added them to that quilt. And on the back of the quilt, you can see the name of the person who does it. And it was our own Lynn Haynes who won it, who won the quilt, and she donated it back to the Sherwood Police Foundation, and it's going to be here on display somewhere. I'm not sure that they know exactly where it's going to be, but it's going to be housed here for at least some amount of time. You should check it out because it's really impressive.
Cool. And we had how many officers recognized at that? Are you going to talk about that?
No, I wasn't, but 3. And then the agency won a critical incident award for our agency role in the Christmas shooting for Cedarburg.
And then we had a Sherwood resident who's an officer, I think, in Beaverton, Shap, that won life-saving award too.
There was a lot of awards, so I apologize, I don't remember.
Yes.
As far as our officers go,
Yes.
it was Stan Smith, Joe Twigg, and Chris Pierce.
Right.
All right, cool, thanks. Diane?
Nothing really from me. I did watch the video series of that Christmas evening shooting. I thought that was, I don't know the right word, but
Right.
interesting, enlightening, I guess. Also interesting to hear sort of his recall of the situation and how, as he said it, everything kind of aligned that night.
Amy?
Chief, you'll have to tell me if I'm going crazy or not, but I feel like I've heard and seen an uptick of traffic, social media traffic related to scary people walking through town or unwanted people walking through town or sketchy people walking through town, and people are saying that they're calling it into the SPD, but I don't know if that's truly happening. And besides letting them know, letting the community know, don't forget to call it into SPD if you have concerns. Do you want us to call it in if they don't, or do you want us to just stay out of it and just encourage them to call?
No, you need to encourage them to call, so the after call, or what I would maybe say a hearsay call, that's a really
Yeah.
tough one. So we just need to continue to encourage folks to call 911 if they see something they don't think is right.
Okay.
And remind people that that's why it's there. Now, if it's truly something that they think is more mundane, they can call the non-emergency number, but that doesn't have near the response priority that calling 911 would have. So if they see, as you described it, scary people are really suspicious, that would warrant a call to 911 to get an officer to check it out.
All right, thank you.
Is that it? I would like to commend the PD for their response on that tragic afternoon when the little boy got killed. And especially call out Captain Daniels, because it was late afternoon, it picked up on the news everywhere. There was enough information out, and then what I really appreciated was how Captain Daniels had timely and thoughtful social media posts that informed the community, fairly quickly, early in the early evening, of what had happened and what was going on. Because chatter was going all over, and he used the social media tools very, very well to keep the community informed and show that the department was engaged in handling it. So I thought I was going to mention that last month, but I thought, while it was a tragedy, I thought the way it was handled was very professional and deserves some kudos. So, all right. Anybody else think of anything before we move on? All right. So new business. The big thing that we've got coming up on December 11th, we have the annual boards and commissions little get together, and it's going to be at the Art Center, Community Center, and as we've done in the past, and Amy presented fabulously last year. We have to present our 2 or 3 most significant accomplishments from the past year and the 2 to 3 major goals for the upcoming year. So I'd like to have a little bit of discussion tonight about it, but then I'd like everybody to take this home and then get it sent back into Angie or me, and Amy and I will compile it, and I'll volunteer to present. Before we delve into that, who is planning on going, or do you know yet?
I'll be there.
I'll be there. Okay. All right. Okay.
6 o'clock.
Yep. So, I was telling Bob before we started, when I got this, I was kind of scratching my head. Compared to previous years, we had a lot going on that we were involved in, and without looking at minutes, I was struggling to say, what did we accomplish this year? And I just open it up to if something jumps out. I know we've had some good discussions, but we haven't been tasked with anything of significance from the council this last year.
Well, we did help inform the strategic plan, right? From SPD, that was this year.
Yes.
So we gave the chiefs some input on that.
Okay. All right, so if everybody could review minutes and do a little due diligence and you don't have to use this form per se and fax or scan it back, but if you could send to Angie by the 1st of December your thoughts, Amy and I will work to compile it. All right. Anything else on that? All right, now the big important question. December meeting. The normal night for the December meeting would be the 21st, which is a little close to Christmas, and I think schools are out, aren't they? So, any thoughts?
I'll be here, let's meet. We've got stuff to do. We're gonna have a whole laundry list of things we wanna accomplish. I'm just kidding. I'll be here and I'm happy to meet.
You know, Lori and I discussed this last year. It was the call at that time to not have a meeting. And primarily, correct me if I'm wrong, it was the date and so close to Christmas, and people are, if school is out, they may be taking trips out of town, or having relatives come into town and that they would like to be with. So all that has to be taken into consideration. Since it's so close, I would opt not to have a meeting unless there's some overriding situation or problem that we should meet.
Okay. Anybody else? I'll add my 2 cents is that for most people, if they get Christmas Eve off, they're getting the Friday off. And if you're going to be traveling, you're going to be packing Thursday night. So, given what I'm going to talk about next and what the chief and we've talked about is kind of our next agenda item, I think, since we're going to rely on council staff or city staff for some presentations and stuff, giving them to January may make more sense too. So, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to skip the December meeting.
Okay, second? Okay, it's been moved and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, so our December meeting will be participating in the Board and Commission's annual event. How's that? Okay, so as we've discussed, and I have not had the opportunity and was kind of encouraged to wait before going before the council to discuss our plans of helping the chief kind of do a featuring exercise. And we had the first presentation about the planning process that's attached to these minutes. But the next little piece we need is some of the population projections and some information on the financial lag. When property's built and people move in, when does that new property tax come into the general fund of the city, so that we have a good handle and we can maybe help. That may help us do some of this futuring planning for the chief. If the chief can work with the city staff on maybe seeing if we can get that on the January agenda, that would be awesome. And then I'd ask Council President Garland if he could recommend a council meeting, the pre-work session, where I can come in and present our kind of vision and get a little go for it, or we've got something else. That'd be awesome.
And be looking to January to do that?
Yeah, or whatever your schedule is in December. I'm not going anywhere, and I can come in.
Yeah, we will be having 2 meetings in December. So,
Okay, so,
I can talk to Joe on that and set the
Perfect.
agenda.
okay. All right,
And then, Chair, also on that, I think the other thing we talked about is those traffic stats, right?
right, and that's what I was gonna mention, that, and that is a second parallel track of concern and interest of both the citizens and this board, and you know, where your staff can pull together statistics that we can look at the last couple of years and see, because besides the scary people in town, there's still a lot of chatter on social media about certain cars and individuals and activities and stuff like that.
Can you offer any guidance of specifically what you're interested in, like just statistical count data on types of citations, or, I mean, what?
To me, I think categories of, moving violations, DUI type stuff, and then whatever other categories, because I'm not an expert on this, but I'd like to have maybe 4 years worth so that we can look at some trends.
Okay.
Anybody else have any ideas?
I'm trying to remember, some of that's in the annual report too,
Right.
right? So some of it we already have
we
access
can-
to.
We can get together some better data than that,
Okay.
more specific.
Okay.
But I think the big thing is several of us, if not all of us, hear a lot about speeding and activities on the roads that really concern the citizens, and just having a good sense so that we can be responsive on what the trends are, and maybe throw in population and staffing numbers so that we can see if there's any correlation to stuff.
I have a question for you. When you talk about sketchy people, do the Sherwood police, do they do field notes on suspicious activity of people?
So through our computer-aided dispatch system, what we call CAD, you hear that terminology? If there's a various ways to clear a call, and so on a suspicious person, if it leads to some kind of an arrest or documentation of some kind of a crime or possible crime, there's going to be a report that's written. Otherwise, if it's just a contact and there's really nothing there, it's going to be information contained in the CAD call. So compared to when we were driving police cars around and you would do what was called a fur card or some kind of a field contact, those days are long gone and it's all in the computer now. So the officer will get out, talk to the person if they get their name and check them for wants and warrants, all that. That's all going to be in the call. So it's all going to be captured by CAD. The officer may make notes about the behavior or any unique things that were related to the contact. So to answer your question, yes, but it'll all be, it'll be different. We don't have to go into a, so in some ways it's better, in other ways it makes it more complicated to like search a particular pile of data. So we'd have to go in there and.
Well, the reason I ask is because he's asking about that type of activity on a buildup. You should be able to have or see something, an increase.
Oh, yeah,
activity.
absolutely. Yeah, we can run call types and find out how many suspicious persons that we've been out on, whether they were self-initiated or called in by somebody. So I mean, we can mine the data to find out how many times we've responded to any number of things. But you got to keep in mind, the more data you're asking for, the more cumbersome it becomes. But we can certainly get it.
All right, thanks. Anybody else have any other thoughts?
I just need to clarify, are you wanting the suspicious? Because right now I'm just focused on traffic.
Well, I think it depends on what our outcome is, right? Is the goal to have the chair present to council kind of the direction we want to head in terms of looking at the matrix study, looking at the stats that the chief presents, looking at population growth and taxes and all that data, and then try to submit something to council for consideration for future years for staffing, funding?
I think in helping here, Chief, the process is, what we are going to do is help you do some futuring, and you'll present your budget and outlook, right?
Well, yes, if I can kind of help narrow the focus of the conversation. What we've talked about in the past was presenting, if I take us back to the meeting we had with Joe, was presenting information to council that this board wanted to get involved in community outreach and fact-finding and preparation for the future outlook and the staffing of the police department. The purpose of going to council was to say, hey, this is what we want to do, we're prepared to do, we report to you, do we have your buy-off and thumbs up on this? And the hope would then be council would say, yeah, absolutely do that, that'd be very helpful. And then I would work with this board to start to put that together, which would include a review or comparison with, the staffing study, the data we have now, all this stuff to put it together and talk about what we project are the needs of the police department today, tomorrow, and moving ahead into the future. And then, once that's completed, then this board would then present that to council.
And we also talked about making sure that we involve our fellow community members, right, to figure out what they would support, what they're
Right.
interested in.
Yeah.
That's part of
That's
that's part of the
community
process.
outreach.
But the first visit with council was to get their buy-off, because if you look at it from, from the work perspective, you work for them, you're an advisory board to them, and so you don't want to get off in left field without council knowing what's going on. So to get their buy-off and say, yeah, we want you to do that work, and we look forward to finding out, what you come up with or whatever. And it would certainly include outreach to the community to talk about where their support is, or to help gauge their level of support.
And this is the same thing where we talked about and thought there may be an opportunity to do some kind of opinion polling sample sort of stuff. So I guess the short-term traffic is just a snapshot, not for the bigger project. There's just been so much chatter over the last couple months, getting a sense so that when we're asked or we're seeing social media stuff, there's some tools that we can talk about and information that we can share. And so that's the level of the traffic study, I think, that we're looking for.
Okay.
For next month. Does that make sense? Everybody? Okay, all right. So I think I'm done. Does anybody else on the board have anything else they'd like to bring up before we hear what's going on with the council?
Can I just ask a clarifying question? Are we going to be able to see what you're presenting to council, or at least?
Yes.
Okay, before you do it, to make
Yes.
sure that we're all on the same page and
Yes.
don't, okay, I mean, yeah.
Yes.
So if I could ask then, so are you planning on bringing the first presentation just in a work session? What would that look like?
No, what are you talking
I'm
about?
talking about, because you're going to go to council and get like a sign off of yes, in that direction. I just want to make sure that it includes everything that we talked about, and if we go home and talk to our community members, our neighbors or whatever, and they're like, well, I really am interested in you guys actually looking at this, that we're all on the same page with that.
I think it's going to be at a 20 or 30,000 foot level. This is what we're going, and we're not ready to say we're only doing this. Okay.
Sure. So you're going to say we're looking to the future of the SPD.
We're taking where the matrix study left off and doing an assessment of how things have changed since then, and reaching out to the community to find out what issues and concerns they have, and then bringing that all back and working with the chief to develop a plan to assess the needs for the future.
Okay.
And that may include informal outreach or public opinion, but it's going to definitely involve community engagement.
So we're asking them more for the thumbs up on doing an assessment.
Correct. Isn't that what you remember?
Yeah, I would stay away from the word assessment, but yeah, and it's not going to be a work session, so I apologize for the confusion, but the first visit could just simply be at a regular council meeting. where this board through you says, we want to engage and begin to work with the chief and the community to determine the needs and the wants with regard to police services moving forward. Just a very succinct message that says we're going to start really getting busy about this topic. And just to get council to say, yes, we agree, we want you to do that.
Yep.
And then the work will begin. And then, I mean, I can work with you to develop the script for that, but it's really going to be pretty simple. But then the work begins, and we then identify what are the things we want to find out from the community? What kind of data do we want to look at so that we can then, you know, when we talk with the community and they say, well, what are some of the issues with this now? Then you'll have data that you can share with them. And that may be that we'll put together some written materials or, you know, whatever the case may be. So, but that, and then we'll, as I said, we'll draw comparisons about, you know, this staffing study took really one snapshot in time, looked at 1 year's worth of data and drew conclusions. Well, what's the other data that exists and what does that mean with regard to that? And where did that study fall short? Where did it succeed? What else do we need to do? And an important component of that is, what is the community willing to support? Is there level, we know there's support in the community for the police department, but that's different from, is there support to increase the financial resources of the police department? That's a whole different conversation. So that's what needs to be gauged. And then through that process, a determination made, okay, what is the city able to do to meet some of these needs? What are we going to need to go to the community for in terms of additional resources? And a lot of that is, you know, is
Way
down the road, but that's the process that we need to begin with.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
So, and the only thing that I remember that's different than that from our meeting with Joe was, and maybe the work session isn't, it's that he said come to the meeting before the formal council meeting. That's what I heard, I guess, and maybe I was wrong. So we maybe need to check with Joe.
Yeah, we
Things
can
may have-
confirm.
The dynamics may have changed too, so.
Yeah, I thought he was talking about like the presentation time,
Okay.
but we'll figure that out.
I was just looking at the future council agendas. You're probably looking at January at the earliest, probably the second meeting in January would be the
Okay.
earliest we can get anything on. We've got a pretty full agenda for
Okay.
December.
All right, cool. Any more discussion? All right. So, Council President, what's going on?
Yeah, speaking of full agenda, so we got some openings on some boards and commissions that we've talked about. So Planning Commission, with the appointment of Russell Griffin to the temporary council position, there is an opening now in the Planning Commission. So if anybody's interested, applications for that are due 5 p.m. tomorrow. So that is a great group. The Planning Commission is going to be very busy in the near future, working on some comprehensive plan stuff, urban growth, the high school. So they've got their plate full. So if anybody's interested in that, applications due 5 p.m. tomorrow. City Council, we have 2 openings currently for interim appointed positions. The applications for those are due on Monday, November 27th by 5 p.m. And these, both of these are available on the website. There's an application to complete, or you can contact Sylvia Murphy with the city. The city council positions, as I said, they're going to be temporary appointed positions. So similar to what we did with appointing Russell Griffin to the city council. Depending on the number of applications we get, there's an interview process, and that's done publicly, either through a work session or in an actual city council meeting. The people who would be appointed would be voted on by the city council, and they would serve through till probably about the end of April, because there's going to be an election on March 16th, March 18th, whatever that Tuesday is of March 2018. And so in that election, there will be a special election, a citywide vote to permanently select councilors to serve out the remaining term for Councilors Robinson and Harris. So if you're interested in getting on city council for a short time, giving it a test ride. Applications that are due November 27th. Moving on to more kind of exciting, fun city news. Everyone's probably heard by now, of course, but the Smockville Brew House has their grand opening on November 30th. So everybody's excited about that. So good to have a new business open down in Old Town. And another good one is on December 2nd is, of course, I guess they call it the Christmas Parade. I'm calling it the Christmas Parade. Christmas Parade and the tree lighting. Cannery Square, the parade starts at Coles, makes its way down through town to Cannery Square area. So it'll be parade, hot chocolate, coffee, hot dogs, I think a symposium at Milo's is, I'm guessing, probably supporting this. They'll have singing and all that. So that's on December 2nd. I think the parade starts at 4 p.m. And so that's another great event. If you guys haven't been down to a tree lighting at Cannery Square, it's fantastic. So that is all I have. If anybody has any questions for me, glad to answer them.
What time is the Smockville grand opening?
Don't know. I can find out for you real quick. 'Cause have it right away. But it does bring up the fact that there's also the Gibbon Gobble on Thanksgiving as well. So got that. Let me find it.
There was an article that just got posted.
Just on the Gazette, yeah. 4 p.m. They're opening the doors to the public on November 30th.
Thank you.
All right, any questions for Sean? All right. Chief, staff report.
Okay, so monthly activity update as I've been giving you in different varying levels for the last several months. So October, our activity ended on another high. So as we've been discussing, we've been seeing continued increases in our public calls for service. So September of 2017 compared to September 2016, we saw a 17% increase. In October, we've seen a 25% increase. So this is just continuing the trend. I don't have an explanation for it, but that's just where the numbers are at. And in fact, October, and I'm just talking about the calls that have come in through dispatch. We had our highest month that I can find dating back to 2010. So clearly October, not only were there some pretty significant events that took place, but it was just a very busy month. So so those continue to track high. And any questions about that? Like I said, I haven't dug in deep enough to find any particular culprits, but this has been going on for months now. So we're on pace right now to have probably our busiest year in quite a while, or potentially ever, in terms of public demand for service.
So my follow-up is, how does, now that we're fully staffed, or basically fully staffed, we still have some officers that are still in training, with the more bodies on the road and in the community, you also have another interaction tally, right?
Self-initiated, is that what you're
Well,
referring to?
in terms of, yeah,
Yeah.
I'd be curious to see how that's looking too, because you've got more boots on the ground.
Yeah, and it's not, we're not in a position yet to where we're gonna say we're fully staffed, because we have 2 in training. So they're still in a car with the coach. So you really can't measure their activity yet. But I can tell you what higher public calls for service means is that the proactivity is gonna come down. So there's less time for them to amass the same number of proactive activities when they're handling more calls for service, writing more reports, so on and so forth. So
Okay.
that's kind of, again, the general result. Now, once we have 2 more folks on the road, we'll have to see what the calls are at then and where the proactivity, but 2 more people would tend to create higher proactive numbers, but anytime, whether, no matter how many people you're talking about, anytime that workforce is having more demands in one category placed on them, then there's going to be a reduction in the other, so.
All right, thanks.
Many of you may have heard, if you haven't, I'm pleased, I guess partially pleased to announce that our Captain Daniel has been selected as the next police chief for the city of Mount Angel. So he will be leaving us by the end of the month to assume those duties, so we're extremely proud of him, but at the same time, are certainly going to miss him. So a great game for them and a great loss for us. But as I said, we're very proud. This has been a career goal of his, and so it's great news. We will have a reception for him on Wednesday, November 29th at 2 o'clock in this room. And he's certainly going to be around until then if you want to wish him well or whatever. So
When's his last day?
it'll essentially be that day. I mean, in terms of public access, I guess I would say.
And then what's the process for replacement?
That's all internal, hasn't been determined. It's probably, with all respect, not something that I'm going to talk about.
Oh, I didn't mean like
Publicly, but-
who is going to be the person, but like what is the actual, like how?
Not there
Really?
yet. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
But it's, okay.
So the position will remain, but we have to make some decisions internally about how we're going to move forward. So. And then finally, as I'm sure everybody's aware, a tragic event last weekend in Texas with the church shooting. In response to that, in association with Chaplain Parrish, who liaisons with our faith community, we have reached out to our faith community and offered any level of assistance that they may be interested in. Let them know that we're thinking about them, because clearly that's something that impacts their world. So in response to our reaching out, I was invited to come to a pastor's meeting this morning, Sherwood pastor's meeting. And I did, and I spent probably an hour and a half with that group of leaders talking about just the topic and the implications and things to be thinking of. Have offered our assistance in any of their planning, emergency planning, anything like that. And so anyway, we had a very good meeting, very productive meeting. We've got a couple of follow-ups that we're discussing. I will defer to Rich Miller if he wants to add anything, but we're gonna give them some resources on emergency preparation, a guidebook that they can utilize within their organizations. And then we've also made ourselves available for any training that we would customize to their organization. So we're waiting to hear back on that. So, meaning you want to add to that?
I don't have anything to add yet, so
Okay.
probably next week is Thanksgiving, so we won't meet then next Thursday, but we'll probably talk about it the following Thursday.
Yeah. So I thought it was a very, very productive meeting. So very happy to be engaged with that segment of our community, which we have been for quite a while. So, and that's all I have.
Okay. All right. Do we have any citizen comment tonight? You're all shaking your heads. I got my timer and everything. All right. Any other things that the board would like to offer up? All right, so everybody has an assignment. Get me back 2 to 3 of our most significant accomplishments and our major goals for the coming year. And Amy and I will compile that, and I will present. I hope everybody can join us on the 11th. It's a fun deal if you haven't been before.
It is keep it pretty short, so you're not there long, and it's a really good meal. Sylvia does a great job of bringing in a nice meal, so it's a lot of, it's good fellowship.
You get to hear from all the other boards and commissions too, what they're doing as well, so it's a good information share.
You don't have to dress up.
No, sir.
He's in.
Your meeting attire will be just fine.
All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Second?
Second.
We're adjourned. I'm not even asking a question.